Thank you all for being here today. I know a lot of you have already answered this question, but we had it too. Just where are you joining us from today? But another question that you can answer in the chat is what is your favorite way to get outside? We would love to hear that. We are here from Leave No Trace, which we'll talk a little bit more about what that means. And some of you might already know, but we'd just love to know what you enjoy doing outside.
Yeah, it allows us to get to know you a little bit better.
Okay, we're in Jackson right now.
Yeah, we see Pat. Um,
Yes, we're coming to you from Jackson, Wyoming right now.
yeah. Why don't you answer the question of what is your favorite way to get outside most recently?
Okay, my favorite way to get outside right now, um, I guess hiking,
Yeah,
probably.
I agree. Like
Yeah,
it's
it's been
great
really
hiking
nice
weather right
hiking.
now. Not too much rain. We see some people also like hiking, rafting, fishing. We are big into fishing right now as well.
Nice.
Skiing, horseback riding, hiking, climbing. Sounds like everyone likes to do everything really. Nature viewing, kayaks, incredible. Alpine lake adventures, very,
Ooh,
very fun.
surfing,
Nice, good array. Cutting
hiking.
firewood.
Ooh,
Oh,
he wants
yeah, we
to.
appreciate the work that you do in cutting firewood.
Backpacking, sitting outside by water, love that. Good book. Have a nice drink. Okay, so thank you all for answering and welcome. This is gonna be kind of a leave no trace crash course or refresher for those of you who are familiar. We taught a session last year. As part of this, we did like a trivia. And so I don't know if any of you were around for that, but if not, we're just going to give some fun, hopefully relevant information for all of these different activities that you enjoy doing outside and just hopefully providing some resources for making a minimal impact when we are recreating. So we'll just quickly introduce ourselves since a lot of you have introduced yourselves. My name is Haley,
And I'm Gary.
and we are one of the Subaru Leave No Trace traveling teams. So we work for Leave No Trace, the organization. We've been in this role for 3 years now, and we travel around the country pretty much full time and teach Leave No Trace in all different capacities. We do a lot of formal workshops. We work with land managers, general public, universities, youth organizations, schools, pretty much everything under the sun. We go to events and just talk about Leave No Trace. But yeah, we've been traveling around. Like we said, we're currently in Wyoming right now, but we've spent most of this year out east.
Yeah, and now that you know a little bit about us, a little bit more depth of the agenda is that we just introduced ourselves. You kind of shared with us about yourself. We'll go into some background on Leave No Trace. We'll go over the Leave No Trace spectrum. We'll talk about impacts. We'll break down the 7 principles, which are kind of the 7 big tips and some of the pillars of Leave No Trace education. We'll share additional resources. By the time you know it, it's going to be all over, but we'll definitely leave time for questions. And during the whole time we have here today, feel free to type in questions. We'll be pretty alert on the chat, and don't be afraid to type any question. So without further ado, yeah.
Yes. So a lot of people may not realize this, which this was, at a time it was new information to us too, but Leave No Trace actually is a nonprofit organization. I know a lot of people have probably heard of the term Leave No Trace or maybe could infer the concept, but we are an organization based out of Boulder, Colorado. And the organization has been around for almost 30 years now. But our mission is basically to make people the solution to conservation. So we are totally education based, and we really just want to provide, like we said, provide resources and just help people understand the impact and just the weight of small actions the weight that it can have on the environment. And that we'll talk a little bit more about impacts in a bit, but in terms of kind of the areas of work that we're doing, we kind of have 3 pillars of work that we're doing. So one is science and research. If you're curious, kind of where the idea of Leave No Trace comes from, or if you're familiar with the 7 principles of Leave No Trace, where that comes from, where all this curriculum, we have a really strong education team at our organization. And we as an organization are conducting and have conducted a lot of research studies and have worked with other universities and other entities to kind of, based on science, really look at what the best practice is for leaving it as little
No, we should be back shortly though. We like to pick up some vehicles.
on the environment.
Oh, over there.
And so the second piece is training for all. So as we said, we are totally an education-based organization, and you all are a part of this second piece today, but we really believe that the more people that have any sort of, Leave No Trace awareness, the more we can spread it to those around us, those who we are going outside with, and sharing the word. And then the last piece is vigorous stewardship. So once we are aware of, kind of the weight that we have and the power that we hold to protect the environment, we can really apply that to our everyday lives, not just when we are outside hiking or camping or any of the things that you all listed that you enjoy doing outside, but it's what we're doing in our everyday life. So when we're inside, when we are grocery shopping, when we're walking around our neighborhood, what are we doing to kind of live this Leave No Trace attitude all the time?
Cool. And now, as you see on the screen, this is kind of the impacts that Leave No Trace addresses. And so I'll read them off, which are wildlife impacts, soil impacts, vegetation impacts, cultural resource impacts, water resource impacts. And then the other impact that a lot of people don't think of as an environmental impact is that social impact of the impact that we can have on other people as well. Because, a lot of the times we have, had an interaction that, wasn't the best with another person outdoors. And so that can really leave an impact on our outdoor experience, which in turn can impact, our whole experience and how we see the outdoors and whatnot. And so Leave No Trace does really try to address that social impact that we can have on each other. And a question for you all, we kind of got a list of things you all liked to do as you listed it out, from mountain biking to hiking to paddling. We're curious, is which impact do you mostly see within your recreation? We always ask this question because we just like to see, mostly what people are seeing outside when they go outside.
And we'll answer in the meantime.
Yeah, we'll answer in the meantime. So most recently, we have been taking a lot of time to fish, and so we see a lot of water impacts from trash and litter to it to that's mostly what we see within
Causing
the
pollution.
rivers, lakes that we go to. And so yeah, as someone else has said, they see social impacts. They've, had experiences with social impacts, soil impacts, garbage dumps. Yeah, lots of trash, vegetation, whether that's, widening trails, stepping on sensitive vegetation, people picking vegetation, totally. Human waste. Someone else has also seen impacts on riverbanks. As you see, all these impacts are very relevant. As you can see, we see them within the array of recreation that we all like to do. And so the good thing is that Leave No Trace education and the 7 principles that we're going to talk about later address all these impacts and how to prevent them, because these are all preventable impacts through education, experience. We can try to all help minimize.
Yeah.
And so
we see a whole array.
A big array, abandoned fires,
dog poo. Wow. And a lot of these, it just depends on, where you're living, what kind of things you're doing outside to see what impacts you're exposed to. So thank you all for
thank you for sharing.
Answering. It's good to hear.
Yeah. And so now here's a little bit older of a graph. This is public land usage. And as you see on the left side of the graph, it's visits per year in the hundreds of millions. And this graph was a little bit older. This was 2019. And so we need to update it. But from 2019 to now, we know that there has been a way larger spike in outdoor recreation as well. So these numbers would be even higher. And this graph doesn't also include that municipal park or the local park within neighborhoods as well, which gets the most visitation, but hardest to track. And so we can see that there's hundreds of millions, billions of visits to the outdoors per year. And this is kind of a good, important visual because, for example, say we went out to the river and threw, an orange peel, right? In the big scheme of the environment, that may not have a huge impact on the big scheme of the environment. But looking at this graph and understanding that it's not just me going outside, it's not just you going outside, it's not one person, there's billions, hundreds of millions of visits to the outdoors a year. And if everyone did that just once during their visit, then you'd see that cumulative impact to grow and grow, which creates that major impact that we see often. And so this is a good visual kind of to remind us, even our one small action of, packing out our orange peel and not throwing it out on the ground does have a big impact on the environment, a positive impact. And so, yeah, that's why we like to share this graph. And what we call an impact repeated multiple times is a cumulative impact. So that's the main goal of kind of looking at the numbers in a graph form.
Yes. Okay. So really quickly, another question for you to answer in the chat. I know we asked you what kind of impacts you see regularly, but we'd love to know kind of if you had to pick your pet peeve in the outdoors, so to speak, like the one impact or thing that it just bothers you the most, it gets under your skin above all else. I know there might be a lot of things on that list, but we'd love to know what your top one is. And it could be anything. It could be something that maybe you don't see super often, but when you do, you just can't stand it.
Oh yeah, we see plastic water bottles. We see that a lot as well. Trash, human waste.
Dog poop and baggies next to the trail. We see that a lot.
Yeah, we see a lot of human waste.
Carving names on trees.
And maybe share why you selected that impact as your most frustrating impact. We love to see kind of the rationale or the reasoning why that impact gets under your skin the most versus other impacts.
Oh yeah, used diapers.
Speakers. We see speakers because it impacts the solitude. So again, back to that social impact.
Fishing line, fishing line is a good example of like if it was just a little bit, it wouldn't be that noticeable, but that cumulative impact really adds up and can be a hazard. Cool. So thank you all for taking the time to answer that. It's really interesting to hear. And as you can see, everyone in this group, there's however many of us in this session today, and probably every single one of us, there's a huge array of different impacts that bother us the most. And that is because we all have our own individual outdoor ethic. And so for those of you who this term outdoor ethic may be new, basically an outdoor ethic is what guides us to make decisions in the outdoors, or, what affects what we believe is right versus wrong. And what can influence our outdoor ethic is, what we enjoy doing outside, what kind of environment we are living in. Maybe we're in, a place like Jackson where it's pretty pristine and there's a lot of backcountry out here, but there also is a lot of front country too. Maybe you are living more in a city where, trash is something that you see a lot more often. But basically, it's a good reminder to us that we all have our own individual outdoor ethic, and we've all developed this over time through our own experiences. And so when we see other people, doing the one thing that bothers us the most, it's just good to keep in mind. More often than not, people aren't doing these things deliberately or on purpose to harm the environment. A lot of times they just because of their own outdoor ethic, or maybe they haven't even arrived at their own outdoor ethic yet, they may not understand the weight of their actions. And so it's just a good reminder for us. We like to think of Leave No Trace as a spectrum. And so on one hand, you have few impacts there on the left-hand side, and on the other side, you have significant impacts. But the idea of Leave No Trace, I think, can sometimes be daunting. Trying to make absolutely no impact or make, a lot of times people can view it as like making it perfect, but Leave No Trace is not about perfection. We totally understand that when we are recreating in the outdoors, which, we should be able to, it's beautiful. And a lot of us go play in the outdoors, to feel inspired, to spend time with friends and family, all different kinds of reasons. And that's totally fine. But inevitably, we're making some sort of impact, and that's okay. We just want to be making as little impact as possible. So doing what we can, like all the preventable impacts, like as you can see on that right-hand side, that's a lot of preventable impact. Like the trash could be easily picked up in the moment or afterwards. And so we just want to be mindful of those things and hope to end up on the fewer impact side of the spectrum.
Yeah, nice. Nice. Now we're already here at the 7 principles of leaving a trace. And so we will kind of go over them. We'll share with you different hand motions that help you kind of remember these principles as well. It's great if you're actually trying to remember it yourself or teaching a group. I was going to say teaching a group first, but we'll dive right in. So the mnemonic is kind of a hand motion that correlates with the number principle. So number 1 is plan ahead and prepare. So you get your number 1 out. It's the first principle. You're thinking about things, you're writing it down. That's how the hand motion correlates. And feel free to do it, behind your screen, cameras off, no one will see you. Because they will help you remember these principles. They definitely helped me when I first learned them. But planning ahead and preparing entails a lot. It entails everything of planning everything that you're going to need and can possibly run into before you go out on your outdoor experience or recreation. Planning ahead and preparing includes looking for extra food, water, looking at your group's expectations or your friends' expectations of what they want to get out of a certain experience. We call plan ahead and preparing kind of the golden rule of leave no trace, because without planning ahead and preparing, it's kind of hard to keep these other 6 principles or tips in mind when going outside. And so when you're uncomfortable, when you don't have, your no more snacks, or you don't have that extra jacket or layer, it's really hard to think of how do I, leave a minimal impact on the outdoors when, you're not ready for a certain uncomfortable situation. And so, yes, plan ahead preparing could entail so many different things. And so, yeah, we just named a few, but there's so many different ways you can plan and prepare.
Yes. Okay. So principle number 2 is travel and camp on durable surfaces. So you're traveling on a trail and you're camping on a durable surface. So we'd love to hear, if you'd like to, in the chat, what comes to mind when you think of a durable surface? Because I know that term might be new to some of us.
And it could be, attributes of a durable surface. It could be, what you think the definition is, half thoughts, full thoughts,
Yes.
Everything. If you could name a durable surface, we'd love to hear that as well.
No vegetation, dry ground,
Yeah.
slick rocks.
Rock.
Yep. Tent pad. Yep.
Totally. That's a durable surface.
Yes. These are great examples. Feel free to keep naming different examples, staying on the trail tread. Absolutely. Yeah. So, one of the best examples of a durable surface is something that has been engineered or created specifically for our use. So a tent pad is a perfect example, a trail, another perfect example. Those things are obviously go-to durable surfaces that we'd want to stick on and try our best not to veer off of. But in the case, maybe if we're in a more pristine area, maybe somewhere in the backcountry where either we are hiking, biking, camping, whatever we're doing out there, if there's not a designated trail or area, we want to just be mindful of durable surfaces. So as many of you have listed out, a durable surface is any surface that can withstand a heavy impact. So rock is a great example. Packed dirt, snow. Someone made a great comment on snow. Yes. Something heavy. And I think someone also listed no vegetation. So that's really the key thing, is just being mindful of any living organisms that might be existing on a surface. So vegetation, wildflowers, lichen and moss is a big one. In some areas, something called cryptobiotic soil, which can easily be confused as dirt, but actually is comprised of a lot of living organisms, small ones. And so, just being mindful that where we are stepping, even if we're hiking and we need to step off the trail to either let someone pass or take a break, just being mindful of where we're stepping or setting our packs down, things like that. But yeah, just making sure, I think, that we are placing our impact in more populated areas. We are putting our impact where there's already been impact placed or it's been designated for impact. And then in more pristine areas, we actually want to disperse our impact. And, let's say you're in a group of 10 people and you're on a hike in a backcountry area, you'd actually want to disperse your impact so that we're not creating any sort of permanent impact out there.
Cool. Very nice. Now we're on principle number 3. So you get your 3 up there and you kind of get like a little hole, and then you're digging a cat hole and you're kind of patting it over, naturalizing it like nothing has been there. And a cat hole, by the way, is a hole 6 to 8 inches deep to dispose of your human waste when it allowed. And yeah, like I said, disposing of your waste properly includes human waste. So figuring out, is there going to be a facility where I'm going to recreate? Can I dig a cat hole? Because in some areas, it's regulated or advised not to dig a cat hole. So then in that case, do I have to pack out my waste? So again, planning ahead and preparing, looking up how do I get rid of my human waste? In addition to packing out your like trash and other waste as well, like seen in the photo. So even, orange peels and banana peels, apple cores, we always recommend to pack out your trash, your even organic materials as well, because one, wildlife can be attracted to it, and we don't want them eating those things. And 2, it takes a long time to decompose as well when it's thrown out on the trail, not in a composting bin. And that kind of leads us to our activity that we have. If you're competitive, we have a game, which we hope you enjoy.
And there's also a comment about how this is fun to go over with young kids. So feel free to use these examples as
feel
well.
free to use the
Kids
example
love
game.
it.
Demoing how to pack out your waste is a fun activity with youth as well. But this is called Trash Timeline. Exactly. We have someone already submitting a guess. We're going to show a bunch of different items, and you just type in the chat, how long do you think it takes to decompose? Tell us your guesses. And this, again, like we said, is on the trail, not necessarily in a composting bin, like in a controlled environment. And so let us know. We often see a lot of these items that we listed or are going to show you. And so we would love to hear your guesses. And nice. We have a lot of guesses already. We have 6 months, 3 years, 2 years, 7 years, 10 years, a year, 2 years, 6 months, 2 to 3.
Good guesses.
Someone said, I feel like it depends on environment. And yeah, it does. And they say 6 months, 5 to 10 years, depending on the area, 18 months. Very nice. We'll give everyone maybe 10 more seconds to guess. I know we have those people who are really thinking hard and want to have a solid guess, and we want to give you a chance to submit it. But 3, 2, 1. Nice. We had a bunch of people say, 2 years or in that range, but yes, it's up to 2 years, which is surprising for myself, even when I first learned it, because you think, it's something organic, it's natural. You think it would decompose a lot quicker, but actually, yeah, these numbers are based off a Forest Service study of taking the average on, depending on whatever environment. In an average controlled environment, it takes up to 2 years when it's out on a trail for an orange and banana peel to decompose. So we see, a bunch of y'all had that right on the nose. Very nice.
Nice job.
Good job. But now we have next item, aluminum can. We see this pretty often as well.
Whether it's crushed or just
thrown as it is in the
Actually,
photo.
there's both in the photo.
But how long do you think this can be? A little tricky. What do you think? How long do you think it takes?
Ooh.
We'll read some guesses out for those just listening in. We have a 50 years, we have a forever, we have another 50, 10 to 15. We got 100, we have a 15, 50 to 75, 20 to 50, 100, 160, 50 plus, 150, century, 60. We give everyone 10 more seconds. 10, Nice. Yeah, I get 60. Okay, okay. And the right answer is 80 to 100 years. Oh my gosh. A lot of y'all had the 100, which is
Good
on,
job.
yeah, on the dot. Very nice job.
That's a hard one.
It is a hard one. So yeah, aluminum cans, 80 to 100. And for this whole activity, we say that assuming longer, for people who, put in a longer time than the actual decomposition time, we say, that's the right mindset anyways, because having the mindset of, this item won't be quickly decomposing is the right one. So we pack it out. But those that said 80 to 100, extra bonus points for actually getting that range. So very nice job. Our last item, maybe the item we see the most, is a plastic bottle. How long do you think this takes to decompose?
And this is the bottle itself.
Yeah, the bottle itself.
Not the liquid in it.
Not the liquid. Yeah, good luck. Good luck. This is a tough one. But yeah, we do a bunch of cleanups, and I'd say by far this is probably the most one, probably because it's water bottles.
Yeah. And we
And that's
never
why I don't know
see
why.
we never see just one. Whenever we
It's
see
true.
them, there's
Clumped
a
up.
lot of them.
A lot of people are drinking water.
Yeah.
Sometimes we see them as pee bottles as well.
Yeah.
But some of these guesses are, I think this is where
Yeah.
500 years, 500, 200, 100, 150, never, infinity symbol. Love that. 450, 25, 1000, does not decompose, 200, 2050, 80 years. Again, we'll give you that 10-second mark. So, you got to submit your guess right now.
10,
Forever. Very nice.
9, 8.
3, 2, 1. It is indefinitely. So yeah, those people who said it does not decompose, right on. The forever, right on. Plastic never fully decomposes. Even when it breaks down to tiny, tiny particles, it turns into microplastics, which are tiny, tiny pieces of plastic that you may not see. And they pollute and get into different parts of the environment, from water sources to, the food that we eat because of animals, ingesting some of the microplastics as well. One not fun fact is that we eat, a credit card size of microplastics that get polluted into our food systems a month. And so it's a not fun fact, but it just, goes to say, recycle your plastics if you're using plastic bottles, but always, shoot for reusables. But that's, now you know how long a plastic bottle takes next time you see it on the trail. Yeah, surprising. You get some wow.
Yep.
Yes.
Crazy stuff. Okay, so we're gonna move right on to principle number 4. And so for the hand motion, it's a little bit trickier, but you've got basically you make 2 L's, one's backwards, but you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you are making a rectangle or a camera for leave what you find. And the reason why it's a camera for leave what you find is because we want to be mindful of not taking things that we shouldn't from the environment. I think especially not taking something from one environment to another, maybe we don't want to introduce invasive species. And so that's where the camera comes in. We always recommend, or we recognize that the reason why people might take things home with them, whether it be a rock or maybe a shell if you're at the beach, is because people want to remember their experience. It's kind of like a souvenir type of thing. And so we always say, maybe try taking a photo of it instead, or if you're an artistic type, maybe painting a photo. Painting a painting or drawing, whatever, there's a lot of creative ways to remember the experience. But we also do recognize, especially now, foraging is a huge way that people are getting outside, foraging for mushrooms, all different kinds of things. And we totally recognize that. And I think just want to be mindful. One is if it's foraging, just being mindful of like if things are poisonous and things like that. We were just in an area where a lot of the poisonous mushrooms looked very similar to the edible ones. So being mindful of that, and also being mindful of just local rules and regulations. But yeah, definitely want to recognize that there's a lot of cultural significance to certain activities. But for the most part, just being mindful of like taking a bunch of things. I think as Gary was talking about that cumulative impact, it's kind of the same idea that like wildflowers, for example, I know in California, the super bloom just happened. So all of those orange flowers were popping up. And I think that's a great example. If one of us were to pick a wildflower, wanted to take it home with us, it wouldn't be that noticeable. But let's say there was 20 other people on the side that saw me take a wildflower. And so they all said, oh, it must be okay to take a wildflower. Then 20 of us took one, and then it spreads from there. And it's one small action repeated a bunch of times makes a bigger impact. So just being mindful of that. And then also just respecting cultural and historical artifacts and sites, especially I think when it comes to historical sites, and there might be artifacts around, just recognizing that those artifacts actually are part of the story that's being told at these sites. And so I know we do a lot of trash cleanups and work with archaeologists to educate volunteers on what is considered an artifact and can't actually be taken and thrown away as trash, because it is there for a reason and it's part of the history. So just being mindful of that as well.
Cool. Already on number 5, the hand motion is get your 5 up here, get your 5 down low, wiggle your fingers, and it's minimize campfire impacts. That's your little fire. But this is looking into, first off, can I have a fire? I know I'm from California, so a lot of the places in the West during the summer, there are burn bans where you can't have a fire. And so looking up to see if a fire is okay. And if it is, just being mindful of using pre-existing rings, if there are them, and not creating new ones, being mindful of putting out your fire. So something we like to call campfire soup is, really putting a lot of water on your leftover coals, mixing it up so it's like campfire soup, and your coals should be cold to the touch. That's when your fire is properly put out. And then just being mindful of wood as well. So when if you're in an area where you can collect firewood, being mindful of the size and make sure we're not breaking off branches and just collecting them off the ground. But yeah, that is minimizing campfire impacts.
Yes. All right. Moving right along. I know this is a fun photo, but principle number 6, this is an easy one too. It's 3 and 3, and you make your little animal ears for respect wildlife. And we saw, I think at the very beginning, when we asked you what kind of impacts you see, I think a few people had mentioned wildlife impacts, whether that was, you've witnessed people getting too close to wildlife or maybe feeding them, things like that. I know we are in Wyoming right now, so we've been seeing a lot of wildlife, even just not that far off the road. And it's something to be mindful of in terms of observing from a distance. That's totally irrelevant than where we are right now. Not petting them, not feeding them, just respecting the fact, this is their home outside, and we don't want to do anything to frighten them or disturb them or, make them habituated to like our food or anything like that. And so a lot of times people ask us, okay, well, you're telling me to observe from a distance, but how far should I be? And so we like to do something called the thumb trick. And so you see these cute little owls there. You can practice on these owls, but the thumb trick basically is where you stick your arm straight out, one arm, make sure it's straight so your elbow's not bent, and you stick your thumb out. And let's say I'm looking at this owl here, and if I cover or close one eye, the owl should be completely covered by my thumb. So right now it definitely is not. The face is barely covered. So to be a safe distance, I would definitely need to take a few steps back. But the entirety of the animal's body should be covered by your thumb. And I don't know, it's just a fun way to put things into perspective that a lot of times it's a lot further than we think to give animals their space and make them not feel like we are violating their personal space or their livelihood. And so that's a fun thing that you can teach kids or adults. But another thing is just storing your food properly. So That's also a relevant thing where we are in bear country right now, but just either storing food and anything smellable, so toiletries. If we were cooking with our clothes and then our clothes smell like food, or if we spilled food on our clothes, which happens to me a lot, storing those things properly too, either in the provided, like if we're camping, a lot of times there'll be a food storage locker. Or if not, I think in some areas, the local regulations will allow you to store things in your car, but sometimes not. So another important reminder to always stay up to date on the local rules and regulations, because we want to do everything we can to be mindful of the living things around us.
Mhm. Cool. And if you have any questions as we keep going along, feel free to type them in. We'll have another time at the end, but we're already here. Number 7. It might be the easiest hand motion to remember it. And it's a wave and a peace sign of be considerate of others. And kind of as the principle states, it just talks about, being mindful of other people when we go outside. Everyone goes outside for different reasons. Some people go out for, solitude and silence, and other people go out, to be with their friends and family and have, a time outside with like a little party. And so respecting the reason why everyone goes outside is really important, and being considerate of others. Like what are some ways we can be considerate of others? I just list off a few, as I'm sure there's a big list as well. But number 1, right off the bat, can be being mindful of your noise if you're camping next to other people. I'm sure plenty of us have had, noisy neighbors. And so just being mindful that some people are trying to sleep sometimes is big. And then
Especially in quiet hours.
especially later in the later hours of the night. And then another way you can be mindful of other people can be, giving the right of way on trails, and being mindful of stock usage when there are animals on a multi-use trail. We ask this question at our booth when we do public outreach a lot to kids of how can you be considerate of your camp neighbors? And they say, bring cookies to your neighbors. And we love that as well. So just being nice to everyone around you. And there's just so
does get to happen to us.
I know. Well, people have been really nice and generous.
But no one's brought us cookies.
Yeah, but no fresh cookies when we've been out camping. So be the first to share that along with your neighbors. But another thing is that the Leave No Trace 7 principles, 7 tips of things to keep in mind when going outside although it was originated for the backcountry and going backpacking and doing backcountry activities. Leave No Trace has now been adapted to really any activity you can think of, to front country, to geocaching, to everyday life even. That's a big movement or piece of education we've been sharing a lot within the past few years, is how you can leave no trace just in your daily life as well. And so it really has been adapted to any activity. And if you're interested, I'm sure on our website, you could type in leave no trace and type in your activity, and it kind of gives a tailored tips of how you can leave no trace during that activity as well. And so, being considerate of others is huge.
Yes. And those are the 7 principles.
Yeah. Should we go over the hand motions all together?
Sure.
Okay. So we'll go back to that slide.
Too far.
No.
Oh,
right there.
Right.
Okay. So just to nail down these hand motions so you remember them, because they really do help. They're silly, I know, but they do really help you remember them. We'll go over it together. 1, plan ahead and prepare. 2,
travel and camp on durable surfaces.
3, dispose of waste properly.
4,
it's a tricky one.
Leave what you find.
5, minimize campfire
impacts. 6, respect wildlife.
And 7, the easy one, be considerate of others. Youth love these as well. It could be a memorization game. I love them as well. Now I do,
Yes, it really works.
It does help.
And there's your refresher on all the principles.
Yeah. And so here are kind of the final resources we have to share with you all. It's a QR code. If you want to, feel free to scan it. And it will just lead you to a lot of these socials and resources that Leave No Trace provides and offers for everyone. One we like to highlight is the YouTube channel. We have so many videos on our YouTube channel. If you type in anything outdoor related and type in Leave No Trace at the end, there's probably a video Leave No Trace has made on it. Like, how do you poop in the woods? Leave no trace. We
How
got
do you
many
use the
videos on
beer
that. How to use a
canister?
beer canister.
How do you wash your dishes?
Yeah, cooking tips when I'm camping, Leave No Trace. We have videos there. So if you need to, show it to a group, or you want to get a refresher, or you want to send it to a friend who has that question, these are like short videos that are super helpful. And yeah, now we have a time for questions. We have a few minutes, so feel free to type it in. We already have one in here. Is Leave No Trace considering adding an eighth principle focused on not leaving a digital footprint? Forgive me if you already addressed this. That's a good question. We get that a lot of another principle of the kind of social media impacts, or I guess it's social, like digital, I guess.
Yeah.
Put it a good way, digital footprint. I don't think we're looking to add another principle right now. We do talk about our digital footprint and the uses of social media. We have like social media suggestions or guidelines where we say, geotag responsibly, consider what your images portray. So if you have like a really close photo of an animal, it can look like that you're really close to them, but sharing in the description or your story that you have a zoom lens, or this is how you got that photo, is really helpful. So if someone who just glances at your photo has the right impression of how you took a lot of these photos. And so we do have a lot of curriculum around social media, though it may not be one of the 7 principles or whatnot. But that's a good question. We get that a lot. And we always say, be responsible when posting on social media. And we do recognize that social media and the online realm is actually a really helpful way where a lot of people can get to know and be educated about the outdoors as well. And so great question. Yeah, so feel free if you have any questions, but we thank you all for joining. So we'll be here for a few minutes. Feel free to type any question, any thought. Here's our email as well if you have any questions that you may think of later. But
yeah,
yeah,
let us know if you have any more questions or comments, either if you want to know more about something that we talked about, or maybe you're curious about something that we didn't talk about, like the social media concept. Yeah, we are open. We'd love to share with you, but
definitely. Yeah, that in the photo you see, that is used to be our Leave No Trace mobile rig, Subaru, that we travel around the country in, talking about Leave No Trace in all different kinds of ways, as Haley kind of mentioned, from festivals to formal workshops.
yeah. Great question. Is there a place for reminding us of the 7 hand motions in case we forget them? Yes.
Yeah.
There actually is a YouTube video that already exists of not us, but a past team member going through the hand motions. So you can try to post that link in here. I think we can. I'm gonna stop the share for now, but let's see. Pull it up. But yes, it's always a good reminder.
That up, we saw someone say, you've been researching about the LNT Gold Site certification, and what's the minimum site size that would be eligible? That's a great question. Off the top of my head, I would have to look into the minimum size. I don't know if we even have a minimum site size for a gold site certification.
It's pretty
and so
situation based.
Yeah, so definitely reach out if you're interested in getting the gold standard certification and recognition. I'm sure our education team would love to work with you on that. But yeah.
Ooh, we have a fun question. What's your favorite activity to utilize teaching each principle? I've taken the educator course a while ago and would love to hear your favorite activities to use.
Yeah, that's a good question.
That is a great question. Well, the easiest answer that I can think of is, like, I feel like we spend a good amount of time like doing water recreation related things. So like when we took our first educator course, we were doing sea kayaking, and that's how we like first learned how Leave No Trace can apply to all these different activities. And as Gary mentioned, we've been fishing a lot right now, and a lot of Leave No Trace can apply to that. And we've taken a lot of our friends and family out to do that activity, and we'll kind of talk about informally each principle. Also camping
True.
is
But
a
also like the trash game we played is helpful to play, to learn about trash. We do something called the 10 essential grab bag or 10 essential relay, where you have a bunch of items in a bag and then people pull them out and then they can put it in a pile of like, is it essential or not essential, to talk about being prepared. There are so many activities. But we also have a resource guide on our website too, where there are a bunch of Leave No Trace activities for all the principles as well. But that's just some of them off the top of our head. We have an animal impacts game where you have different cards with impacts, and you choose it to be an animal. You pick up like 3 cards, and if 2 of them are bad, you are not in the round anymore, and you do not make the night. But that's another fun game. But yeah, those are a few of the fun games we like to play with people we are talking about Leave No Trace with. And
we had
then
another good question. Yes. Someone said, I've heard LNT is working with different tribes to develop some recommendations for being respectful on native lands. Can you share any more info on this? Great question. Yes, it's kind of an ongoing process, and we are constantly learning more too about how to recognize, native communities that either still are on the land that we recreate on, or originally were there. And right now, like, I think one of the biggest things that we're doing as an organization is we're working with IANTA, which is the American Indian Alaska Native Tourism Association. And we have been working with them. We personally are not too involved. It's mostly a different team at the organization that's working directly with them, but trying to, figure out, like, in the curriculum and the things that we're teaching, how we can kind of shift the language that we're using, and just making sure that we are being mindful and in addressing this.
addressing like original names of areas
Yeah.
to like what we're talking about with Leave What You Find of,
Mhm.
it could be a spectrum of how people have relationships with the outdoors as well, and recognizing that foraging is a big recreation as well. That's just a few ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we see someone saying that they're a native-led nonprofit representing natives not on native lands, and you have a canoe journey. And yeah, we love to
Cool.
reach out with you. Copy and paste that email. But
That's awesome.
yeah, great
Thank you.
questions.
We had our very first canoe workshop 2023, and the next speaker was our community partner, Charlie Birdhat, and it was a really great event. We were able to include a lot of pictures from the workshop, and please visit our website. And I just want to share with you, I really appreciate your presentation and your energy. I have a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old that's at home, and they're listening to you and
Oh, yeah.
excited by what you're sharing. And
That's
that's
awesome.
I need. I hate to say it, but I use my kids all the time to feel the energy of what's being presented, so that when I work with other age groups, I can get an idea of how the audience, the generations that I'm working with, are going to accept the materials. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing that with
Yeah,
us.
thank
That means a
you.
lot.
And glad to hear that your kids have been listening in. That's awesome. Yeah.
Nice ears.
It definitely is like an ongoing challenge to just try to make all of the 7 principles, make them relevant for different age groups, like you said, different generations, different people groups, and people that have different relationships with the outdoors. So we want to make it relevant for everyone.
Yeah, that means a lot to us.
Yeah.
But we know we're a few minutes over time, and we'll hand it over. Yeah.
But thank you.
And thank you, Gary and Haley. That was awesome.